She was a homeless girl with nothing but a torn blanket and a kind heart. He was a broken man hiding from the world, pretending to be poor. One small act of kindness on a cold night changed everything, because when she helped him, she had no idea he was a billionaire CEO. And when he revealed the truth, her life would never be the same again. The night was cold, the kind of cold that crept into bones and refused to leave. The city lights sparkled like stars fallen to the ground, but they offered no warmth to the people who lived beneath them. On a quiet sidewalk near a busy intersection, a young homeless girl sat curled against a brick wall, hugging her knees to her chest. Her name was Lily, and she was only 17. Her clothes were worn and faded, layers stitched together by time and struggle. A thin jacket hung loosely on her small frame, its zipper broken long ago. Her shoes had holes near the toes, and she stuffed them with old newspaper to keep her feet from freezing. Beside her lay a small cardboard sign, handwritten in uneven letters. Hungry. Anything helps. God bless. Most people passed without looking. Some glanced for half a second, then turned away, pretending not to see her. Lily had learned not to expect anything. Hope, she had discovered, was dangerous when you had nothing to fall back on. Still, she smiled at everyone who met her eyes. It wasn't fake. It was all she had left. Lily hadn't always lived on the streets. There was a time when she had a home, a tiny apartment with peeling paint and a leaky ceiling. Her mother used to hum softly while cooking cheap meals, trying to make them feel special. Her father, before he left, would lift Lily onto his shoulders and promise her the world. Those promises vanished the night he walked out and never came back. When Lily was 13, her mother fell sick. Hospital bills piled up faster than hope. Lily watched the light fade from her mother's eyes day by day, until one quiet morning, the humming stopped forever. After that, there was no rent money, no relatives willing to take her in, and no place for a lonely teenage girl to go. The streets swallowed her whole. She survived by collecting scraps, doing small favors, and sometimes going to bed hungry. But no matter how cruel the world became, Lily refused to let it harden her heart. She believed kindness was the only thing that couldn't be stolen from her. That night, as traffic slowed and the city exhaled, Lily noticed a man sitting across the street on a bench. He looked homeless too. His coat was old, his beard untrimmed, and his shoulders slumped as if the weight of the world pressed down on him. Unlike the others, though, there was something different about his eyes. They were distant, empty, as if he had given up long before ending up on that bench. The man's name was Daniel Reed, though no one on the street knew that. Fewer still knew he was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, a man whose name appeared in business magazines and news headlines. Tonight, none of that mattered. He wore no watch, no suit, no sign of wealth. He was just another forgotten soul in the cold. Daniel had chosen this life, at least for now. After years of power, meetings, and endless money, he felt hollow. His success came at the cost of his marriage, his friendships, and any sense of peace. People smiled at him because of his wealth, not because they cared. He wanted to disappear, to know what life felt like without privilege. So he walked away from his penthouse, his chauffeurs, and his assistants, leaving behind a note no one understood. Now, sitting on that bench, Daniel wondered if he had made a mistake. The silence was loud. The loneliness was suffocating. For the first time in his life, he felt truly invisible. Lily watched him for a long moment. She noticed the way his hands trembled, not just from the cold, but from something deeper. Hunger, maybe, or sadness. She reached into her small bag and pulled out a half sandwich wrapped in paper.
It was all she had for the night.
She had saved it, planning to eat it slowly, so the hunger wouldn't return too quickly. She hesitated. Her stomach growled in protest. Then she stood up. Crossing the street, Lily approached Daniel slowly, careful not to startle him. He looked up, surprised to see a young girl standing in front of him. "Hi," she said softly, her voice gentle but steady. I don't have much, but I thought you might be hungry." She held out the sandwich with both hands. Daniel stared at it, as if it were something sacred. He hadn't eaten all day, but it wasn't the food that shocked him. It was her, a homeless girl, barely surviving herself, offering him the only thing she had. "You should keep it," he said quietly. "You need it more than I do." Lily shook her head and smiled. "I'll be okay. I always am." That smile hit Daniel harder than any insult or rejection he had ever faced. Slowly, he took the sandwich, his fingers brushing hers. They were cold, rough, and small. He felt something twist painfully in his chest. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking despite his effort to stay calm. They sat together in silence for a while, sharing the cold air and the distant sound of traffic. Lily didn't ask him questions. She didn't judge. She just sat, as if his presence mattered. After a few minutes, Daniel spoke. "Do you ever wonder if life could have been different?" Lily looked up at the sky. "Sometimes," she said. "But I think maybe this is teaching me something. Like how to see people. How to care." Daniel swallowed hard. No boardroom speech had ever moved him like those simple words. As the night grew colder, Lily stood up. "I should go," she said. "There's a shelter line that fills up fast." Daniel nodded, watching her walk away, her thin figure disappearing into the shadows. For the first time in years, his eyes filled with tears. That small act of kindness had cracked something open inside him, and he knew, deep down, that his life would never be the same again. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He lay on a piece of flattened cardboard beneath an old bridge, staring up at the dark concrete ceiling, replaying Lily's smile over and over in his mind. The sandwich she had given him sat half-eaten beside him, carefully wrapped again, as if it were something precious. He had food access any time in his real life, 5-star meals prepared by chefs who never looked him in the eye. Yet this simple, cold sandwich offered by a homeless girl had meant more to him than any luxury dinner ever had. For the first time in years, Daniel felt ashamed of his wealth. As morning came, the city woke with its usual impatience. Horns blared, footsteps hurried, and people rushed toward lives filled with purpose, deadlines, and comfort. Daniel watched them from the shadows. He wondered how many of them would stop for a girl like Lily. He already knew the answer. Later that afternoon, Daniel went back to the same street corner, hoping to see her again. He told himself it was curiosity, nothing more. But deep down, he knew it was something else. He needed to understand how someone with nothing could still give so freely. Lily was there, sitting in the same spot, her back against the brick wall, knees pulled close to her chest. Her cardboard sign was gone, probably taken by the rain earlier that morning. She looked tired, more tired than the night before, but when she saw Daniel approaching, her face lit up. "You're back," she said, surprised and genuinely happy. "I thought I'd find you here," Daniel replied, sitting down beside her. "I wanted to say thank you again." She waved it off. "It was nothing." Daniel shook his head. "It was everything." They talked as the hours passed, sharing pieces of their lives without revealing everything. Lily spoke about her mother, her humming, and how silence had filled their home after she passed away. She talked about learning to survive alone at 13, about nights when fear felt louder than hunger. Yet she spoke without bitterness, as if she had accepted her pain and chosen not to let it define her. Daniel listened quietly, his heart growing heavier with every word. He wanted to tell her the truth, to say he lived in a penthouse and had more money than he could ever spend. But something held him back. Maybe fear, maybe guilt, or maybe he didn't want to break this fragile, honest connection they were building. When it was his turn to speak, Daniel kept his story vague. He talked about losing himself in work, about relationships that felt hollow, about success that never brought peace. Lily listened intently, nodding as if she understood more than he expected. "You know," she said softly, "sometimes people who have a lot are the loneliest." Daniel felt as though she could see straight through him. Days turned into weeks. Daniel kept returning to the streets, choosing to stay hidden from his old life. He watched Lily share food with other homeless people, even when she barely had enough for herself. He saw her comfort a crying child whose parents were struggling nearby. Her kindness wasn't a one-time thing. It was who she was. And slowly, without realizing it, Daniel began to change. He started helping others too, sharing what little money he had brought with him, listening instead of judging. He felt lighter, more human. Yet with every passing day, the weight of his secret grew heavier. Lily trusted him. She believed he was just another broken man trying to survive. One cold evening, Lily didn't show up. Daniel waited for hours, pacing the sidewalk, his chest tight with worry. He asked around, but no one had seen her. As night fell, panic set in. He reminded himself that he barely knew her, that this was none of his business. But his heart didn't listen. Finally, near midnight, he found her sitting in an alley, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her face was pale, her lips trembling. "Lily," he said, rushing toward her. "What happened?" She tried to smile but failed. "They took my blanket," she whispered. "Some guys, they said I didn't need it." Daniel felt a surge of anger he hadn't felt in years. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her without hesitation. "You shouldn't," she said weakly. "You'll freeze." "I'll manage," he replied firmly. "You matter." Those words broke her. Tears streamed down Lily's face as she cried silently, her small body shaking. Daniel sat beside her, shielding her from the cold, realizing how cruel the world could be to someone so gentle. In that moment, he made a decision. He couldn't stay silent forever. He couldn't let this continue. But the truth would change everything. The next morning, Daniel disappeared. Lily waited on the sidewalk all day, her eyes scanning every face that passed. He didn't come. She told herself not to feel disappointed. People always left. Still, the emptiness hurt more than she expected. What Lily didn't know was that Daniel had returned to his old life for one reason only. Not to reclaim his power, but to use it. Inside a towering glass building, executives stared in shock as Daniel Reed walked into the boardroom after weeks of unexplained absence. His appearance was different, beard trimmed, suit sharp, but his eyes carried something new. Compassion. "Cancel my meetings," he said calmly. "I have something important to do." Plans were set into motion that no one understood yet. Arrangements were made. Invitations sent. A public event announced under the name of charity and corporate responsibility. And at the center of it all was a homeless girl who had no idea her kindness had reached the highest floors of the city. Lily sat on her sidewalk that evening, cold and confused, whispering into the empty air, "I hope you're okay." She had no idea that soon, the world was going to learn her name. The day of the event arrived wrapped in sunshine and noise, the kind of day that made the city feel alive and important. Huge banners were hung across the front of the tallest building downtown, announcing a new charitable initiative aimed at helping the homeless. News vans lined the streets. Reporters adjusted microphones, cameramen tested angles, and crowds gathered out of curiosity. To most people, it was just another corporate publicity event. To Lily, it was just another day of survival. She woke up early on a piece of cardboard behind a closed grocery store, her body stiff from the cold. Daniel's coat was still wrapped tightly around her. She had tried to give it back to him, but he had disappeared before she could. She hugged the coat close, not just for warmth, but because it smelled faintly of something clean and unfamiliar, something that reminded her she wasn't invisible. As she walked toward her usual spot, she noticed the commotion downtown. People in suits, flashing cameras, police officers guiding traffic. She felt small as she passed by, like a shadow slipping through a world that didn't belong to her. Still, she stopped for a moment, curious. A large screen had been set up outside the building. On it, the logo of a powerful corporation glowed brightly. Lily couldn't read the small text beneath it, but she recognized the feeling in her chest. This was not meant for people like her. She turned away, planning to move on, when a security guard approached her. "Miss," he said, not unkindly. "Are you Lily?" Her heart skipped. "Yes, why?" "We've been looking for you," he replied. "You're invited inside." Lily froze, fear rising in her throat. "I didn't do anything wrong," she said quickly. "I was just—" The guard raised a hand. "You're not in trouble.
Please."
Someone very important wants to see you." Before she could protest, she was gently guided toward the building. People stared. Some whispered. Lily clutched Daniel's coat tighter, wishing she could disappear. Inside, the building was cold in a different way. The floor shone like mirrors. The air smelled clean and sharp. Lily's worn shoes left faint marks on the polished surface, and she felt embarrassed, every step echoing her difference. They led her to a waiting area near the stage. Through a gap in the curtains, she could see a crowd of well-dressed people seated in neat rows. At the center of the stage stood a podium with microphones lined up like silent judges. "Just wait here," the guard said. "He'll call for you." He left, and Lily was alone. Her hands trembled. Her mind raced. Why was she here? Had someone recognized her from the street? Was this a mistake? Then the room grew quiet. Applause erupted from the audience as a man walked onto the stage. The screen behind him lit up with his name and face. Daniel Reed. Lily's breath caught in her chest. It was him, the man from the bench. The man who had shared silence with her, listened to her stories, wrapped her in his coat. Only now, he stood tall in a perfectly tailored suit, his hair neatly styled, his beard gone. He looked powerful, untouchable. Her heart sank. She felt stupid, naive, played. Tears burned her eyes as she turned away, ready to run. But then she heard his voice. "Before we begin," Daniel said into the microphone, "I want to tell you a story." The room went still. "A few weeks ago," he continued, "I walked these streets pretending to be someone else. Not for a stunt, not for attention, but because I was lost." Lily slowly turned back. "I had everything money could buy," Daniel said, his voice steady but heavy. "Yet I felt empty. Invisible in a world full of people who only saw my title, not my soul." The screen behind him changed, showing a picture of the city streets at night. "On one of the coldest nights of my life," he said, "I met a girl. She had nothing. No home. No security. And yet she gave me the only food she had." Murmurs spread through the crowd. She didn't ask who I was. She didn't want anything in return. She saw a hungry man and chose kindness. Daniel's eyes searched the room until they found Lily standing frozen near the stage. "And that kindness," he said, his voice breaking, "saved me." A spotlight suddenly lit up around Lily. Gasps echoed through the room. Cameras turned toward her. She raised a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Daniel stepped down from the stage and walked toward her. Each step felt like a heartbeat pounding in Lily's ears. I'm sorry I disappeared, he said softly, standing in front of her now. I had to make this right. He turned to the audience. This girl reminded me of what it means to be human. And today, everything we are announcing is because of her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Lily, he said, looking at her, you once told me you believed kindness was the only thing no one could steal from you. She nodded, tears streaming freely now. I want you to know, he continued, your kindness has built homes, funded shelters, and changed how this company will operate forever. He handed her the paper. It was an official document. Her name was written at the top. A full scholarship, Daniel said, housing, medical care, and a place in a foundation that will help others just like you. The room exploded with applause. Lily couldn't speak. She shook her head, overwhelmed, her knees weak. I don't understand, she whispered. Daniel smiled gently. You don't have to. Just know this. Your life is about to change. But deep inside Lily, a question remained. Was this real kindness, or just a beautiful moment that would disappear like everything else? The applause faded, but the moment stayed suspended in the air, heavy and unreal. Lily stood there, still clutching the paper Daniel had given her, her fingers creasing it without realizing. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes.
Scholarship, housing, care,
a future. Words she had never allowed herself to imagine before. She looked around at the crowd, people smiling, cameras flashing, reporters whispering excitedly. For them, it was an inspiring story.
For her, it was terrifying.
Daniel noticed the fear in her eyes. He stepped closer and spoke softly, so only she could hear him. You don't have to decide anything today. You're safe now. That's all that matters.
Safe.
The word felt foreign. They escorted Lily out through a side entrance, away from the noise. A woman in a warm coat gently placed a cup of hot tea into her hands. Lily flinched at the heat, then wrapped her fingers around it, savoring the warmth seeping into her skin. A car waited outside.
Clean.
Quiet. Too nice. Lily hesitated. I've never been in a car like this. Daniel opened the door himself. Then let this be your first. She climbed in slowly, half expecting someone to stop her, to say there had been a mistake. But no one did. The door closed with a soft click, sealing her inside a world she had only seen through windows. As the car pulled away, Lily pressed her forehead against the glass and watched the streets pass by. The same streets she had slept on. The same corners where she had begged quietly and shared crumbs with strangers. It felt like leaving a part of herself behind. They arrived at a small but beautiful apartment building. Not a mansion. Not something overwhelming. Just warm, modest, and bright. This is temporary, Daniel said as they stood inside. A place for you to rest, to breathe. Lily walked through the room slowly, touching the walls, the couch, the bed. A real bed, white sheets, pillows that didn't smell like the street. She sat down on the edge of the mattress and stared at her hands. Suddenly, her body began to shake. Daniel knelt in front of her. Lily, I don't know how to live like this, she whispered. Every time something good happens, it gets taken away. He didn't interrupt. He let the silence hold her words. What if I wake up and it's gone? She continued. What if I'm back out there? Daniel reached out, then stopped, not wanting to cross a line. I can't promise life won't hurt again, he said honestly. But I can promise this isn't a lie. For the first time since her mother died, Lily let herself cry without holding back. That night, she slept for 12 straight hours. When Lily woke up, sunlight streamed through the window. She lay still, afraid to move, afraid the bed would vanish. But it didn't. She sat up slowly and let out a shaky laugh. It was real, Over the next few days, Lily met doctors who spoke kindly, teachers who listened patiently, and social workers who treated her like a person, not a problem. She was given clean clothes, healthy meals, and choices. Simple choices, like what she wanted to eat or when she wanted to rest. Things she had never had before. Yet, despite all of it, something inside her remained guarded. She met Daniel regularly. Sometimes they talked about practical things, school options, counseling, plans for the future. Other times, they just sat quietly drinking tea. One afternoon, Lily finally asked the question that had been haunting her. "Why me?" she said. "You could help so many people." Daniel leaned back, exhaling slowly. "Because you helped me when you didn't have to. And because I don't want her kindness to be punished by the world." She looked at him, searching his face. "Are you doing this because you feel guilty?" Daniel didn't avoid the question. "Guilt opened my eyes," he admitted. "But respect is why I'm still here." That answer mattered. Weeks passed. Lily started school, terrified on her first day, overwhelmed by classrooms and other students. She struggled at first, but she worked harder than anyone. Every night, she studied until her eyes ached, as if afraid knowledge could be taken from her too. One evening, she walked past the shelter Daniel's foundation had renovated. She saw families inside, warm and fed, children laughing. Her chest tightened. She realized something then. She didn't just want to be saved. She wanted to save others. Lily approached Daniel with a quiet determination. "I want to help," she said. "Not later. Now." He smiled, not surprised. "I was hoping you'd say that." He invited her to join the foundation meetings, not as a symbol, not as a poster child, but as a voice. She spoke about the streets, about fear, about dignity. People listened. Policies changed. But healing wasn't linear. One night, Lily had a panic attack after hearing raised voices outside. Daniel rushed over when he got the call. He found her on the floor, shaking, breathing fast. He sat with her, grounding her, reminding her where she was. When she finally calmed, she looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I'm broken," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "You're human." In that moment, Lily realized something profound. She hadn't just changed Daniel's life. He was helping her learn how to live with hers. The city gathered again months later, but this time the energy felt different. Softer. Warmer. The tall glass building still stood, the cameras still flashed, but the focus had shifted. It was no longer about a billionaire CEO making headlines. It was about lives being changed quietly, steadily, one act of kindness at a time. Lily stood near the edge of the crowd, her hands clasped together, her heart beating fast. She wore a simple dress, not expensive, not flashy, but clean and comfortable. Her hair was neatly tied back. If someone passed her on the street now, they would never guess where she had come from. But Lily remembered. She always would. Daniel stood on the stage again, but he was no longer the same man who had once hidden behind a torn coat and silence. His voice carried humility now, not authority. "Today," he said, "this foundation officially opens its doors across 5 cities. Shelters, education programs, medical care, and job training, built not from pity, but from respect." Applause followed, but Daniel raised his hand gently. "There is one more thing," he added. "Someone I want you all to hear from." He turned toward Lily. Her breath caught. For a moment, fear threatened to pull her backward. Old memories whispered that she didn't belong here, that she would say the wrong thing, that people would stop listening. Then she remembered a cold night, a bench, and a man who had looked more broken than she felt. She stepped forward. The microphone felt heavy in her hand. The crowd went quiet. "My name is Lily," she began, her voice trembling at first. I used to live on these streets. A ripple moved through the audience. I know what it feels like to be invisible, she continued. To be hungry, scared, and forgotten. I also know what it feels like to have nothing and still choose kindness. Her eyes met Daniel's for a brief second. I didn't help someone because I thought he was important, she said. I helped him because he was human. Silence fell, thick and emotional. For a long time, I thought kindness was all I had, Lily said softly. Now I understand kindness is also what builds the future. Tears glistened in many eyes as the crowd rose to its feet. After the event, Lily slipped away from the noise. She stood outside, breathing in the cool air, grounding herself. Daniel joined her a moment later. You are incredible, he said. She smiled, small and real. I was terrified. He chuckled gently. So was I, the first time I stood in front of a boardroom. Fear doesn't disappear. We just learn to walk with it. They stood in silence, watching the city lights flicker on as evening settled in. Do you ever regret it? Lily asked suddenly. Walking away from your old life. Daniel thought for a long moment. I regret not walking away sooner, he said. I spent years chasing more, when all I needed was meaning. She nodded. I used to think money was the answer. Now I know it's what you do with it. Daniel smiled at her, pride clear in his eyes. Not the pride of ownership, but of witnessing growth. Years passed. Lily grew into herself. She graduated, then studied social work and public policy. She never forgot the streets, never let comfort erase memory. She visited shelters often, sitting on the floor with those who felt forgotten, listening without judgment. Daniel slowly stepped back from the spotlight, letting the foundation become bigger than his name. He found peace in quiet mornings, meaningful conversations, and watching Lily become a leader in her own right. One winter evening, long after the headlines had faded, Lily walked down the same street where everything had begun. The bench was still there. The brick wall, too. A young boy sat nearby, hugging his knees, eyes tired and weary. Lily approached him gently and held out a warm sandwich. Hey, she said softly. You hungry? The boy hesitated, then nodded. As he ate, Lily sat beside him, just as she once had with Daniel. Somewhere across the city, Daniel looked out over the lights, feeling a familiar warmth in his chest. Not pride, not success, but gratitude. He finally understood the truth he had been running from all his life. Wealth can build towers, but kindness builds souls. Money can change circumstances, but compassion changes people. And sometimes, the smallest act, done by the purest heart, has the power to transform even the richest soul. Lily had nothing when she gave. Daniel had everything when he received. And in that exchange, both of their lives were changed forever. And so, this is not just a story about a homeless girl or a billionaire CEO.
It is a story about hearts.
A girl who had nothing taught a man who had everything, the true meaning of life. She didn't change him with money, power, or words. She changed him with kindness. In a world that rushes past pain, her small act of humanity created ripples that saved countless lives. Because real wealth is not measured in bank accounts, but in compassion. And sometimes, the people the world ignores the most are the ones who carry the purest hearts. If this story touched you, remember this. You don't need to be rich to change someone's life. You just need to be kind. Thank you for listening. And never forget, one good heart can change the world. Blue Heart.